It is the official opinion of Fragments of Silicon that early August is too goddamn early for Halloween stuff in grocery stores.
All right, welcome to another installment of Fragments of Silicon. I'm your host, Adam. Joining as always, our Petty and Gallix. Right, let us get to the news, such as it is. Petty, why don't you start us off this week?
Well, my week's been relatively quiet. Still trying to help mom find a job. Getting infuriating. Wednesday I had, or not Wednesday, Tuesday I had a doctor's appointment. Monday. Dates are hard. And after the doctor's appointment, there is a card shop near my doctor's office that was having a Digimon pre-release tonight, which means they were allowed to sell the boxes of the new set. So on a lark, I went and picked up a box. And when I got home with my pulls, I found probably one of the rare cards I've ever pulled. It's called a Ghost Rare. It's a monocolor alternate artwork of a card of Gallantmon Crimson mode. And we're not even sure how much this is worth. Because,
well, the set isn't officially on sale until this weekend, so.
Right. And, the only active listings I've seen, even of the Japanese version, are currently going for over $800 here in the States.
Which it'll go down once they're officially available here, but.
Yeah. This is the Japanese version of it, not the. There is no sellings of the English version yet.
Right.
It's not even have a listing on TCG Player yet, so.
Yeah, it's listed as out of stock pre-sale.
So yeah, it's one of those, I have a couple people looking to buy it because I'm not that big of a fan of Gallantmon, but I know people who are. And I know at least two of them with deep enough pockets that if I could coax them into a bidding war, I walk out a happy man. It's fun when you make people fight each other for profit. But yeah, so I'm going to a Digimon pre-release, or not a pre-release, a Evolution Cup this Saturday, and gonna see if I can sell this card. So that's gonna be fun. And in other news, because of how hot it's been, we have algae in the pool now.
Insufficient chlorine?
More like part of the problem is just heat. And because we hadn't had our pump swapped yet because it had the leaky impeller. So we keep having to turn it off for most of the day.
So it's not getting run through the stuff that would get the stuff that turns into algae out fast enough.
Right. So we've added some more chlorine. We got the filter pump replaced finally. So hopefully by this weekend, because it's going to get hot again this weekend, we could have a blue pool again and not a swamp. So that's going to be fun. And that's part of that's why I need to sell the Omnimon, or not the Omnimon, the Gallantmon, because pool chemicals aren't cheap.
Mm-hmm.
And if I would have known I needed to get a bunch of pool chemicals, I probably would not have bought the box. But if I can flip the Gallant mod for more profit than just not buying the box, everyone wins.
Hmm.
And yeah, as far as gaming goes, been slowly getting back into raiding in Final Fantasy XIV with the raid group. We had to shuffle a couple members around. And we're only going two nights a week now, so that kind of sucks. That does leave our, I guess, third night for those of us who are available can like do the map and like optional boss content. So, hooray!
Hmm.
I've also been playing a lot of Rock Band because I grabbed the PDP Riffmaster guitar because my old 360 guitars don't work on the Xbox One, and I could have paid $400 for the adapter to make them work, or $130 for a brand new guitar. I went with a new guitar that I can also plug into my PC. So that's fun. And yeah, I think that's about it from my neck of the woods.
Okay. Well, Alex, it's your go.
It's actually been really nice the last couple of days, but it was raining before then, and we're probably going to get more rain coming up because of, storm drifting vaguely northwards.
Mm-hmm. That's
But
partly where the rain that came and that dumped the algae in my pool. We had an offshoot of one of the tropical storms in the Gulf.
So I'm trying to enjoy it while I can. I had a relatively eventful this past week. We had the pre-release for the same Digimon set. I didn't pull anything as amazing as what Petty got. I got my box had an alt art Omegamon Ace and an
just the regular
regular art of the secret rare Greymon, which is supposed to be the one from the short of the first movie, where they called it Koromon. So it has a weird rule where it has the name of everything under it, and if its name is also Koromon, then it gets some special effects.
Mm-hmm.
You can get some really weird shenanigans with that.
Yeah, and also
considering the ability in this game to put new cards under things.
Mm-hmm. And also just the slew of Greymon that just wants a level 4, or like Metal Greymons and Rise Greymons that just want a level 4 Greymon.
Mm-hmm.
You can get into some crazy shenanigans.
Anyway, I didn't do so great in the tournament, but I only got like 12 rookie level 3s, and that's about the minimum you want in that kind of a format.
At least you don't have to worry about color restriction in pre-release.
Yeah, but part of the reason I didn't do so good is that for like one of my games, I saw literally only 2 or 3 level 4s the entire time. And anyway, it was just I had stuff. My deck had a lot of pretty decent stuff in it, but I didn't get it at good times. Anyway, also, while I was at the game store looking around, I picked up the first Magic the Gathering products I think I've ever bought, which is a couple of the Bloomburrow pre-constructed commander decks, because Bloomburrow is cute.
That's the like woodland animal one, right?
Yeah.
Is that like based off of property, or is it just?
It's original.
All right. I know they have been.
It is apparently a plane in the Magic multiverse, and if people travel to that plane, they get turned into animals, which is why there were versions of several planeswalkers that are animals, even though most of those didn't canonically happen.
I know they've had like a Fallout crossover. They've had a Doctor Who crossover. So
yeah, no, it's not. It's not one of those. It's just a normal set that is like that, and then
with Hatsune Miku recently.
Maybe, I don't know.
Magic's weird, man.
Yeah. Anyway, unfortunately, for my taste, the Commander decks are not as thematically consistent. But also that means I don't need to add stuff from outside of them to it, and I can just play them as they are because they're actually like decent as far as Commander decks go. Apparently, from what I've heard, these are some of the better built ones. So,
well, it's kind of like with Digimon and the advanced decks.
Yeah, it's supposed to be played 4-player free for all, but I've only been able to play it 1 for 1, but it went okay. I still feel my hatred for card games that shuffle your resource in randomly among your deck.
That is one thing I do like about Digimon.
Yeah, either ones that put it in a separate pile or ones that use some kind of alternate resource thing. Yu-Gi-Oh! You don't count.
Yu-Gi-Oh! Everything is a resource.
Have no resource. You just have no resource.
I guess
no resource mechanic. So they have to like use other monsters or cards in hand
or your life points.
Or yeah. Anyway, so yeah, that happened. There was something else that's coming up too, but I can't remember what it was.
I know we could be having your friend on MSP next week.
No, that's tonight, I believe.
Oh,
yes.
Oh, right. Time is weird. So, yeah.
Been arranging that and reading the book. I'm almost done. Hopefully, I'll be able to finish it during the show.
Any more Splatoon escapades?
I reluctantly toyed the Splatoon. The theme for this Splatfest is which starch could you eat every day? Between bread, rice, and pasta. I joined Team Bread because I already literally do eat bread almost every day because I love sandwiches. But it's not really exclusionary. It doesn't seem to be saying you can never eat the other ones. So. But it's red, and that's not my favorite color. Anyway, so I'm trying to play enough to be not too rusty for the Splatfest this weekend. Which is also when some of the bad weather might be hitting, so we'll see how that goes in terms of being able to do stuff online. Oh, there was one other thing. My parents have, without my input, which is fine, decided to change internet providers to Go Net Speed, which is a fiber service in Maine.
Oh, man. Welcome to the world of
hopefully we'll be having better and more reliable internet after that, although I'm sure there will be some hiccups with getting everything connected again, and have to make sure they because we also have a mesh network in the house.
Make sure the access point is just changed the same name as password as you had before, and you should have minimal difficulties.
I will tell them that, and hopefully it'll work. Because we have a mesh network that we're hopefully just going to be plugging the.
Oh, if you already have your own router, then no issues at all. Just plug it into the box, and you're good to go.
That's what I'm hoping. But I don't want to underestimate my parents' ability to mess it up somehow.
And also, if you royally bork it, hi, I'm over here. I'm network certified.
And we'll also have to make sure that hopefully it'll be more reliable, but we'll see.
I mean, mine's been working perfect for over a month, so
it's probably not going to be less reliable anyway. But
yeah.
No, I'm always concerned because I think it's going to be another line going to the house, and we have trees.
It should be underground.
If it is, then that'll be good.
Yeah, as long as there are no buried utilities, like next to
there definitely are.
Well, shallow bury. I think my fiber line is about a foot down.
We'll see. They just put in a couple years ago, either propane or natural gas. I forget. So,
and I'm sure they can, as long as you know where you're going to put your box, they can find a way to run it that it's not going overhead. Because, like, especially in Maine, if those cables, while they're strong, if it gets snow on it, it's just going to snap that glass.
Yeah. It's one thing for copper wires, of which we have plenty that have enough problems.
Yeah. But yeah, once you're dealing with a thin glass cable that the core of it's about less than the thickness of your human hair.
But there's a lot of those, right?
Only on the street bundle. Once it comes to your house, no, it's about the thickness of a human hair.
Huh.
That's all you need.
All right.
It's called single mode.
Hopefully it goes well.
Yep.
And yes, as Petty said, we're having my college friend who has written some fantasy books and done some world building on Moonhawk Studios after this. So, looking forward to that. Hopefully it goes well. And I think that's all I have.
Is Adam here?
I am.
All right, yeah, you go.
Like, I was just making sure Golix was done.
I am.
Okay. All right. It's my go. Okay, let's see. Had my birthday.
I kid.
Like, well, had my birthday a few days ago. It was quieter than expected.
No kids?
No kids showed up. Got food delivered. Instead.
That one of those systems.
Yeah. I mean, it worked out well enough. Just, was a bit jarring to change plans. So, but like I said, it was a birthday. When you get to be my age, they kind of just become almost another day. Like, I'd already gotten my main present, sneakers.
Oh man.
And not just any sneakers, real good ones that'll last a few years. It's like, I'm looking to circumnavigate the economic theory of boots.
Yeah.
10 brownie points if you get where that's from.
Well, because I need to get better shoes too, just because of my CP, I end up dragging my feet a little bit. So the cheap shoes just fall apart within a year. The joys of being physically disabled.
Yeah. Let's see. Trying to think elsewhere here. Oh, right. Also got a new fan for my birthday. I guess I should clarify a bit. When I say fan, I mean an industrial fan. Helps with the circulation. Around the place. As my old one, it literally vibrated apart.
Yeah, we've had that happen.
Yeah, that'll be here Thursday. And planning to get a haircut tomorrow. Been a fair few months. I've had to get my hair cut less because let's just say I have less hair to get cut. But that's mainly in the front. Comes the rest of the skull, it still comes in, and it's at the point where I'm getting overheated. Granted, that's awesome. Granted, that's also because, it's been fucking humid even for Florida because we just had Hurricane Debbie not cross my path, but, kind of go by.
And
we got some of the weather patterns from that. So
Big Deborah.
So, spent a good chunk of, what was it, Monday, Tuesday, feeling heat exhausted.
Mm.
Because so much moisture.
It's like sitting in a soup, but it's air.
Yep. I mean, and keep in mind, it's 100% humidity at that point. Because it's raining and raining a lot. Thankfully, the winds weren't too bad where we were.
Because I remember like one of the last hurricanes that, well, the storm itself wasn't a problem. The winds were, and whatnot.
All right. And yeah, I think that's about it for my news. So merrily, we shall roll along to the interview portion of the broadcast. And we welcome back to our show James Montagana of Wayforward.
Hi there. Thanks for having me.
No problem. It's good. With some guests.
Oh wow. Okay.
Mild blood.
Well, I appreciate you having me back after so long. It's really cool to see that you've been really sticking to it with this and going for so many years.
Yep. I mean, we keep going and we keep talking to people and all that. We like what we do and we do what we like. Right. Anyway, so I think since last time we had you on the program, like if you want to get familiar with James's backstory, I'll post a link to his first interview in the Discord and the chat when it's convenient. But since that time, you've gone on to direct a few important projects for Wayforward, I'd say.
Well, every project is important in its own way.
Right. But special attention to Advance Wars 1 and 2 Boot Camp. As it's not every developer who gets to work on a Nintendo franchise. And I gotta be honest, ever since that game was announced, I've been wondering, how did Wayforward become the developer to reboot Camp, such a beloved franchise?
Oh, sure. Well, I don't know how much I can talk about specifically with that particular title, but Advance Wars 1+2 Reboot Camp is the title, and that game was a collaboration between us and Nintendo. And it was something that started because we'd been talking to Nintendo for just many, many years. I think it might have been something to the tune of like 7 or 8 years where every E3, RIP to the Electronic Entertainment Expo, by the way, every E3, we would make it a point to meet with Nintendo and just kind of chat with them and talk about potential things we might be able to do together. And we'd show them every year, we'd come with a new proposal to sort of just delight and entertain and impress them. And just we'd make sure that the meeting was always something where we have like just a lot of fun together, just so they'd associate with us with having a great time laughing and chatting about games and just appreciating the games as the art form that it is. And so I think after many years of just like this sort of interaction with Nintendo, they came to really look forward to the way forward meeting, as they put it, and we would keep that going to bring something interesting for them. And just building a really genuine connection. They're such awesome people, and they have such a passion for games, and you could just feel it talking to them, you know. And so I think for us, we were able to meet them in that passion because, of course, at Wayforward, we love games too. We it's like you said, you do what you love, right? I think it was just a really good match and a good fit for us to do something together. And so when the opportunity came around where they were thinking about creating something like Advance Wars and bringing that back, they thought, you know, who could we do this with? And they reached out about it, and it was something that we all love very much. You know, I grew up playing Advance Wars myself. I played it in high school. It was the thing to do on our lunch break. We would
Without
play
the
long
GBAs
round
and whatnot.
yeah, you know it, right? Game Boy Advance link cable, and that was the sort of thing that we just really enjoyed doing back then. And so, for a lot of us, where we had played Advance Wars back in the day, the moment they brought it up, you know, our jaw hit the floor. Like, of course, yeah, we'd love to help you create a reimagining of Advance Wars. And so that's kind of what got the project started, and yeah, it was an incredible experience.
Now, when this was being
Adam seems to be having connection
like an
issues
original
again.
title, or you know,
Adam, we lost most of that line.
hang on, like, there we go. Like, I hate Discord.
It's
Like,
funny because I
anyway.
think you're the only one who's having problems with it.
It's got very specific problems that I don't know what cause. Like, but anyway, so when Advance Wars was being proposed, was it always thought as a reboot, or is that something, you know, like, you know, you proposed an original game and then Nintendo proposed, hey, why don't you remake the beloved classics or something like that?
So I can't dig too much into the seeds of how the project started for a couple different reasons, but what I can tell you is I think if I had to sort of just sum it up, the end product that what it came out to be was really true to what we had set out to create. It was this sort of thing where we had a vision and we really did stick to it more or less. And both, you know, WayForward and Nintendo were just really happy and proud of the result. And I personally think it's a very fun experience, and it's a joy to be able to play it online with people. So that's something new that we were able to bring to the table for Advance Wars 1 and 2 for this version of the game. So that was really exciting. But yeah, I think it was the game that everyone got is really what we had set out to make.
That's good to hear. I know not everyone was pleased with the new art style that Boot Camp has. You know, like some people preferred the old.
Well, it wasn't going to be pixel art.
Yeah. I remember the reaction to, you know, like when the first trailer showed up, and, you know, there was a sizable portion of people who, you know, wanted the pixel art, but, you know, that would have been a tall order.
And some of the aesthetic does look a little bit toyish, but that's not far off from how it always was, so.
Yeah. So, as I recall in another interview you did over Advance Wars, you mentioned Nintendo had a different way of looking at things, like unlocking a new color or something along those lines. What exactly?
Right.
What exactly did you mean? Like, what does Nintendo do so differently than anyone else out there?
Sure, if I had to put it in less esoteric terms, I think Nintendo, you know, they're just world-class game designers. They're amazing in what they do. And so when you have an opportunity to get to know them on a deeper level and collaborate and work closely with them, I think the takeaway for me personally was that their approach to doing things, it's incomparable to any other game development experience I've had. But just because it's really just speaking to their unique approach to developing games, and I can't really say like there's one specific thing that is like the Nintendo difference. It's just so many things. It's a lot of like just little details of like their approach to things, such as like the way they think about uh translating and localizing the game, and like when they start that and their organization process for that. I was really impressed with some of those things. And just I think on a more like philosophical way, the way they think about approaching the development of the game and the way they consider the player's needs and accessibility and making sure everything's palatable for players. It really had a profound impact on me. And so I think my takeaway working with Nintendo is I personally grew as a game designer just from having that experience of just being in the same room alongside them and pondering games together and thinking about the player, thinking about the experience, and just having a lot of fun developing this game for everybody. But it was also just like a peek into just other ways of doing things, and once you've seen that, it's hard to think about it any other way. And so I think all future games, such as our latest here, Yars Rising, will feel the impact of being that experience of Wayforward having been able to collaborate with Nintendo on Advance Wars 1+2 Reboot Camp, because we learned a thing or two.
Indeed, that's where I was going with this particular line of questioning, because I'm wondering what exactly could be transposed from Reboot Camp here to Yars Rising, because while we haven't gotten into it properly, they are very, very, very different games.
Of course, yes, they are. All right, I'll tell you what. There's something that I learned from working with Nintendo that I think should be okay to share. It's a technique that I kind of picked up on that we incorporated into the development of future titles, including Yars Rising, and it's the usefulness of something like having a special camera in the game that you can manipulate freely, and it's just so useful for debug purposes. So it's kind of like I guess you put in a command in the controller and it would just be there if you're developing the game. We take that out before the game ships.
Mhm.
And if you put in this command in the controller, you can freely move the camera around and look at things up close, or take like weird angles and just make sure up close everything's like looking good. It's a technique I picked up working with Nintendo, and once I had this sort of technique down, I thought, oh man, like that's so useful as a developer. It's just sort of like a technique that I don't know if I want to ship any game without having that feature as part of our development tools, because it's just so handy, right? And it's not the sort of thing that a player will feel directly, but it makes the development easier, and it gives us sort of just an experience making the game that is smoother. And in a sense, it does benefit the player, because if we're having easier time making it, it'll be easier for us to create an experience for the player. And so it can be things as small as that, and not so much the direct thing that the player experiences.
That is most interesting. Kind of like I'm trying to picture it, and kind of reminds me of like the camera in Smash Brothers.
Yeah, you got
like,
it.
Okay, good. I hope that's the case.
See, we can learn things.
There you go. So I guess you could say it's a little secret for you. I haven't told anyone about that, but there you go.
I'm like, and I suppose junctioning from here to Yars, I assume that this technique has worked out for the development of Yars Rising. Has it been any appreciable differences since you're building? At least I assume it's a Metroidvania title here. That's what everything in the release
the promotional stuff describes it as such. Although, how Metroidvania is varies, of course.
Of course,
Sure.
Yeah, but I mean, doing that versus a tactical strategy game.
Sure. I mean, the question like, did the things we learned, is it transferable? I would say absolutely yes. Even though they're very different sorts of games, you have one is tactical strategy game, and you're kind of taking turns. One is real time action exploration, and yeah, they couldn't be more different in terms of gameplay itself. But I think just in a very general sense, the way you like organize files under the hood, or the way you like team manage, or the way you approach like little details, like when you push a button or screen transitions, you pick up and you learn things from all sorts of development. And it's not just from Nintendo. I think every game that you create as a director or creator, what have you, you're going to learn from those experiences, and that's transferable. If you pick up a little technique on a game like years and years ago, and a time comes where there's a similar feature, you've grown. You'll remember that thing that you did, and you've got now that you got that experience in your tool belt at your disposal. You can apply it where applicable, and I think that's just the nature of just doing something over and over again and learning by experience, right?
Yeah, and like you mentioned, like learning about this camera thing, and you were dealing with essentially the masters of this genre, and like kind of peeking under their hood, kind of how they work with stuff. Like, oh, I can use this in other ways. Got it, type deal.
Exactly. Right. Yeah. While the debug camera's usefulness might be a little bit different in a game that's different than Yars, there's a total usefulness in Yars, and we just apply it when we work with it.
Indeed. Anyway, so I think it's a good time to pull back and go over Yars in more broader terms, since
Sure.
Yars Rising is a very curious game in terms of the lineage, because for those who might not be familiar with Yars Revenge and its many iterations.
I saw the trailer you made for this, and it looked interesting, so I looked up some of the history of it. So this was a really old Atari, obviously minimal variation in gameplay, puzzle shooter type deal. And then at some point someone made, that was Yars Revenge, and then at some point someone made a behind the back 3D shooter of the same name. And now we have a Metroidvania with something like the original classic game as a hacking minigame. Is that about right?
So there's actually more than people expect to the lineage of this game, including titles that either never saw the light of day, or only very briefly, I should say, saw the light of day. Spin-offs, different versions. So there was, as you mentioned, it's a very old game. It was originally released in 1982 for the Atari 2600 console. And on that console, Yars Revenge was the best-selling first-party game. So it was like the hit of the Atari 2600. It was a beloved game for its time in 82. There was tournaments and contests, and there's people that were just really enthusiastic and trading tips and writing in, because we didn't really have widespread internet back then. And I think it was just a great success, very beloved, and people that were gamers back then remember it very fondly. Since that time, and as far as the genre of the game, you could call it like the roots of like a top-down shooter. It's a little bit tough to sort of put it into a box, but you could call it that. And from there was a sequel sort of game called Saboteur that only like way down the line finally got released, and that was also by the same creator, Howard Scott Warshaw, and that was a totally different sort of game. And there was a Yar's Revenge game that was a really great version of it on Game Boy Color. There was ones that were like I guess you could say it was like a web-based version of it, HTML 5 version of it. There was a Facebook game called Yar's Revenge First War. There was the Yar's Revenge, it's YAR''S Revenge on, I believe it debuted on Xbox Live Arcade, if I'm not mistaken. And that was the on-rails shooter game that was inspired by Yar's Revenge, the 82 Yar's Revenge. And then a little bit more recently, you get into the Yar's Recharged, which is part of the Atari Recharged series that they've recently been working on. And then you have our game, which honestly pulls a little bit from every single iteration of Yar's and beyond. And it doesn't seem like it does at the surface. And I think I actually forgot Yar's Return, which is started off as kind of like you could call it maybe a ROM hack. Like it was sort of started out unofficial and then became adopted as an official I guess you could call like it a sequel game of sorts. It gets a little fuzzy, but that was also part of the lineage. So there's actually more than people expect, and of course we had to research all these things, and we had a great time doing it.
Well, that's good. It's always good when you have the passion for the project and all that stuff. Now, were you the ones who pitched this idea to Atari, or did they come to you with the idea?
So it was a conversation that we were having with Atari because we hadn't worked with them in many years, and there was new company leadership, and we just kind of got to going back and forth. And I think we kind of proposed several different brands that we might be interested in exploring. They told us what they were receptive to. So it was a lot of just back and forth conversation early on without the specifics. And then when it got to like which IP, there was a couple on the table. I think one of the ones that might have come up was like Haunted House or something. And ultimately, we had put together a proposal for Yar's Revenge, and it was a reimagining of it that was just so undeniably interesting in its concept that we knew we were onto something. And when we shared it with Atari, they met us with a similar enthusiasm. And I think that's kind of when we knew, like, we have to make this game.
I'm not sure what to say other than that. It's good that things got connected like that.
Mm-hmm.
It really worked out. It felt a little bit serendipitous.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I suppose so. Now, in this reimagining, Yar is instead of being a fly-like alien that fights off the evil Quotile using the Zorlon cannon, she's a hacker girl, apparently. That goes up against what is it? The Quote Corporation or something like that.
You might be thinking of the Kotek.
Kotek, that's it. Yeah, the reimagined name for the Quotile. So, I suppose my first question here is, what's the Zorlon cannon in this scenario?
So there's first of all, that's all generally correct. I think we play with expectations a little bit, but on the surface, as it appears, you're right. Yar is this hacker character whose name is Emi Kimura, and she goes by Yar, which is her hacker handle. And so she does infiltrate Kotek, and I can tell you a little bit more about that in a minute, but you asked a very interesting question. What is the Zorlon canon in this game? So there is more than one reference to Zorlon canon, but I'll tell you more generally in the universe of this game. Zorlon represents a form of energy of sorts. And it can be wielded as a weapon if it's imbued into someone's DNA that is compatible, can receive it. And so early in the game, Emmy actually gets a physiological augment that basically puts her mitochondria on overdrive and alters her DNA, and now she becomes able to wield this Zorlon power, and she gets something known as the Zorlon shot, where she can fire energy from the palm of her hand. And so that's one way we sort of reference Zorlon and the Zorlon canon, as you mentioned. Late in the game is a bit more, and I of course don't want to spoil anything because it's at the very end of the game, but that's actually just one of several different ways that we incorporate the Zorlon and Zorlon canon.
I'm like, well, thankfully she doesn't have to wait a while to fire it off. I'm guessing, like,
it's pretty early in the game, yeah. I could tell you a little bit about how the setup and the background and the story goes. So Emi Kimura, she's a 23-year-old hacker for hire college dropout, and she basically has she lives in the year 2049 in a place called Syzygy City. Syzygy being the former name of Atari before they were known as Atari, so that's a little trivia for you.
right.
And so Emmy basically she lives in an apartment in the city, and her hacker kind of like ring of like hacker friends, they basically take on gigs for hire, and that's how they get money. And so when her hacker crew gets a request from a mysterious client with deep pockets to infiltrate this mega conglomerate company, Kotek. Think of them as like one of like the big electronic companies in our real world. It's like everyone knows them. They have this big building. It's like basically a crazy thing for them to ask to go hack Kotek, but the money's right, and they decide to take the gig. And so Emmy has to pull off her heist, and so she wins their trust by getting a job at Kotek, and that's why you see in the game she's wearing a Kotek like uniform shirt. That's because it's basically like just she works there, right? So she's an employee of Kotek, but she's kind of like earning their trust over the course of several weeks, and then comes the day where she's going to pull off her heist and basically hack them from the inside and collect her paycheck from this mysterious client. And so while she stays late after work one day and infiltrates the Kotek building, the story of the game goes, she gets caught and she gets thrown into a detention center, and now the game becomes she needs to escape the Kotek building with her life.
Ideally with her life.
Preferably.
Yeah. It would be a problem if she didn't, because, well, I guess since it's a sci-fi setting, it wouldn't be unfeasible to have her, I don't know, jack into a robot and, escape that way. But I don't think that's what you're going for here.
Not quite, but you are touching on something. There is some element of Emmy kind of losing her humanity a bit in the process of attempting to escape and unraveling the conspiracy inside the Kotek building. And it's part of just, she has such an interesting character arc of any character I've ever worked on before. She's probably got the most interesting like character development over the course of the story. And she starts to, she's kind of this antagonistic character in the beginning, but over the course of the story of the game, she starts to make like less selfish decisions and starts to sort of like change as a character, and you can kind of like get a sense for how she's developing and changing. And so I'll just leave it at that.
Fair enough. Like, that does sound like a pretty classic character arc right there. Which is nothing wrong with that. Just noting it. Anyway, so can we talk about the, for lack of a better term, Yar persona or Yar stand that's behind our protagonist here in the like official art and the logo and all that? Is that an actual thing that's in the game, or is that just something to represent, the classic iteration of Yar?
It's funny. in a sense, it's not. It actually it's a representation. It's almost like a I guess the best succinct way I can put it without giving too much away of like where the game goes is it is like an effigy or it's more like a how would I put it? It's not its own character. It exists in the game. You can see that art in the game. It's as a concept. It's part of the game, but it represents something a little bit more ethereal.
Sounds interesting. Certainly looked forward to seeing how that unfolds. Like, at any rate, so how do I put this? I guess circling back to reactions and expectations, I know the reactions to Yars Rising have been a bit heated, as Advance Wars was before it. As to put it in succinct terms, a lot of the Atari old heads, they don't seem to like what they see on display here. How will you allay their concerns about, deviating so heavily from what's been established from the Yariverse, let's call it, that came beforehand?
There's an official term, Yarniverse, which was coined by Howard Scott Warshaw, the original creator of Yar's Revenge.
That kind of sounds like a world made by knitting.
Yeah, like Yarniverse universe. I would say that any player that is maybe not entirely convinced to give it a shot, because we have poured so much Atari love into this, and if they enjoy the original Yar's Revenge, if the original Yar's Revenge means something for them, there's absolutely going to be something for them here. It's just completely full of love for the classic game, and so I understand that any game that any direction we could have possibly taken it, there's always going to be someone that has just a different idea of what could have been. But our job is to delight and surprise and entertain people with maybe something they didn't know they wanted. I don't think doing a Metroidvania Yars was on anyone's bingo card, right? So I would say to players that remain unconvinced, it's okay. But I would urge them to at least give it a shot. They might be pleasantly surprised. In fact, I would go as far as to say they will likely be pleasantly surprised.
I do have to ask, what proportion of gameplay is spent doing the hacking minigame?
So I think the idea that it's a hacking minigame is a bit of a misnomer, because it's almost like it's almost like a dual gameplay experience where you're running around, shooting, jumping, doing the exploration, and then you've got a little bit of like the stealth gameplay. So you've got the exploration, the stealth, the action, battling, and then the hacking is sort of this experience that you are very frequently sort of dipping into a little bit, and it comes in bite-sized sort of increments, but it's always there with you, and you're always dipping into it, and you're gaining abilities from doing it that we call biohacks, and you can equip them onto ME and get these powers, and you can organize the biohacks, which is also another sort of a gameplay tenet, if you will. And so I think it's almost like playing multiple games in one, where you're doing this sort of exploration as Emmy, and then you're going into the hacking experience, dipping into it, coming back out, dipping into it again, and it's sort of like you're juggling it a little bit in a way that ends up feeling really fun. And I think players always look forward to when they can get to the hacking experiences, at least in a lot of our playthroughs. And if not, we have features where you can kind of we have some accessibility features for it, but ultimately it's something that is just really like deeply running through the gameplay.
I mean, that does shake up the standard Metroidvania formula a bit there.
Right. Absolutely. That was the intent too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, it reminds me a bit of Shadow Complex personally, because I'm like, I want to say that game did a bit of the stuff like it did here, but it's been a long time since I played that game.
Yeah.
I mean, that aside, can you go, outside of what we've already talked about? Like, what's Emily looking at here in terms of upgrades?
Oh, you mean Emmy?
Emmy, sorry.
So, no worries. So Emmy can earn these things called biohacks, and if you have something that's I guess you could call it a physiological augment. That's one thing, and then you have the biohacks. The physiological augments are things that are permanently imbued into her body, into her DNA. They rewrite her DNA, if you will. And when you have those, you are changed as a character. Emmy has changed as a character, I should say. And then there's biohacks, which are like rewrite, where you can equip and unequip them, and they're more like quick buffs, or they'll add power to your augments that you already have, or they'll make your hacking experience a little bit different, or they might like make the drops from enemies a little bit different. And so
Kind of like
you
the
can
badges from
customize
the
your
Paper
rollout.
Mario series.
You could, you could kind of say it's a little bit like that in certain ways too. Sure. We have a unique deployment method where you have like a pixel yard shape and you're fitting them in, and they're all sorts of like different like tile shapes, and you have to kind of organize and fit them into the shape and take as many as you can.
Well, I
and so
guess more the
every player's gonna have a little
stickers
bit different.
from Smash. Was it Wii U?
Yes.
Where you kind
Super
of had
Smash Brothers Brawl with the stickers.
you
in,
had to fit the
Space
stickers
Emissary.
onto the base, and whatever didn't
Yeah.
fit, you didn't get that power. So it was kind of more like that.
You've got it. Yes, it's you could say it's pretty similar to something like that.
Or for a digital thing, the Navi customizer in Mega Man Battle Network.
A couple of people brought that up too. Yes.
Although that has the whole program line combination thing. That's weird.
Mm-hmm.
Those are great games, though.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so shifting focus a bit to something I don't think we've touched on at all yet, but I would be remiss if we didn't. The music. What's being done in terms of a soundtrack for Yars Rising?
So the music for Yars Rising, I would say, is potentially the most ambitious Wayforward soundtrack of all time. There's nothing quite like it, and I wanted to, in directing this game, I wanted to make sure to pay special attention to the music. I wanted it to be just sort of this audio-visual experience, and so the music of this game is not only just really ambitious, it's actually the most number of artists that we've ever worked with, the most number of different contributing music artists. And it's an international collaboration of artists. So you have artists from here where we develop it in North America, some local people, some around the country. We have some even in places like Australia, and we have a great number of artists contributing from Japan. And so we have this international collaboration, which was, a challenge in itself to organize. And not only is it an international collaboration, but we have more vocal tracks than I think most Wayforward games do. And so there's a lot of like vocals in English and Japanese, which is also a unique challenge. And it
gotta
also
make sure they're
touches on
not
different
saying
genres.
something horrible in Japanese, even though not native language, right?
Well, yeah, it's never really a concern. We have enough people that can understand.
Yeah, I mean, it's always, you've seen the tattoos of, white person doesn't understand Japanese or Chinese or whatever.
Sure, yeah.
It's
In
like,
fairness, there are equal amounts of Japanese person does not speak English, really.
yeah. It's more one of those making sure they don't actually do something stupid or like kind of asshole on you, then,
Our Japanese localization is top notch.
Fair enough.
I don't think anything like that will pass by us because we
At
have
least
native
it shouldn't if
speakers
somebody wants to keep their
involved.
job, right?
We have native speakers involved on the project doing an amazing job. In fact, the Japanese localization of the game is done by my wife, Haru, and she just got super into it. And when the wife of the person creating it is collaborating, it's going to be just incredible quality, and she's great at what she does. So if you play this game in Japanese language, the writing is on point. Everything is just it should feel just completely natural for a Japanese player to pick up and play it. And of course, the lyrics of the songs are all like checked out. They're good. They make sense. So that's a great benefit that we have
Right.
for people like that involved.
Mm-hmm.
So how many?
Sorry. Go on, by all means.
Yeah. So how many music tracks would you say are going to be in this?
You know what? I can't recall how many like minutes of music, but it. So I say it's the most ambitious project, but I think the only game that has like more minutes of music might be Vitamin Connection, but that one was like insane. But it is it's a pretty good amount of music for a Wayforward title. So it's a lot of music. I can't say how much, but one thing I can tell you about the way the music is approached is there ends up being like multiple versions of the same song because we have features where like there'll be like a vocal on version of it, and then you'll go into like a different screen, and then it kind of like dips down some instruments and it cuts the vocals out, and then it's like crossfading to like another version of the song, right?
Like,
and now that just like
I think
doubled.
Spyro did this where they had multiple different versions of the same song, and it looks like auto mix depending on where you're at.
Right. So there's a little bit of that going on. There's a couple of different unique approaches that we took for the music in this game, where one of the biohacks that you can equip early in the game is called Emmy's earbuds. And if you happen to equip that biohack, when the music is playing during gameplay, in the upper right-hand corner, when the song changes, it's going to show you the song name and the artist name at any given time. So you'll be able to kind of hear as the song changes, like what the song name is, what the artist name is. And so the conceit is that, in-universe conceit is that Emmy's earbuds, this is like the music that she is like listening to as she's like going around the game world, and the future technology of this
Shazam's always
world.
On tap, you know.
Exactly, and it's catering the music she's listening to where she is, or the mood of where she is, and so that's how we kind of like the conceit for why the earbuds exist and how like the music is in the game, like it's like the music that she's listening to, and so every area, instead of having like one set song, actually has a playlist of music. So in normal games you have like, this is the music for this world, this is the music for this world. We have a playlist for each world, and not only that, I wanted it to be like a non-stop DJ set. So when you have a playlist of music, it's going to just smoothly like kind of DJ like cross like fade or transition, or like it'll basically have a really artful transition from song to song. And so you don't get like the music stops and then another song starts. It'll just smoothly go into each song, which is huge undertaking to be able to pull it off. But we wanted to make sure to pay special attention to the music in this game. And and then finally, the genres of music that we explore. I think we're exploring music genres that I don't think I've seen other games really touch on. And so I wanted to make sure that we were doing something that felt on trend with what people are starting to like listen to, and unique to gaming, where there's not a whole lot of games. Maybe there's a couple, but not really a whole lot of games exploring these specific genres of music.
Have there been any like thoughts about putting the soundtrack available on like digital storefronts, available for purchase in places like separately from the game? Or
I suppose that would be up to Atari. Our job is just to make a kick-ass game, and what they do with the music and the assets, I suppose, is up to them. I have to imagine they have some plans for that, though.
You would hope, but you never know. It is also Atari at the end of the day.
Well, hey, I think if it's something you'd like to see, if people listening think, that'd be great to have in Spotify or as a soundtrack, let them know. They're always listening. That's a great.
Insert
Atari, they're just so connected with their fan base.
/Atari. Wink, wink.
Like, I suppose along those lines, is Atari planning to release this physically as well as digitally?
That's right. Yeah, it'll be there's a physical versions of Yars Rising, and you can actually pre-order it now. So for sure, pick up the physical.
Platforms set yet, or
the game itself, what it appears, or just the physical?
either or.
Both.
Yeah.
Sure. The game is on all major platforms. Specifically, it's going to be on Nintendo Switch, Xbox, PlayStation, and Steam PC.
Last gen Xbox, PlayStation 2, or just 5 and Series X?
It'll be PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, Xbox One, Xbox Series,
All right.
and Nintendo Switch.
All right.
Is it coming to the Atari VCS?
You got a little ahead of me. And I can confirm that, yes, the game will be released on the Atari VCS console.
Oh, man.
Okay,
I suppose it would be kind of weird if it wasn't.
Well, I mean, I think it was a conversation we had with them, and they were just really enthusiastic about the idea of making this be something that the people that really love Atari games, the Atari old heads, as you put it earlier, I think, those people would have this special experience, because it really is a special game, and we didn't want those people that just love Atari and they have the Atari VCS to miss out on something like this. So it was a point that Atari drove home, and we were on board with it because we felt how important that was and how much they care about that audience and want to make sure to do right by them. The people that have that console,
Mm-hmm.
Indeed. Now, in terms of the PC, is it coming to Windows only, or is it going to be compatible with Linux and or Mac?
I'm not too sure about that one, but I know we develop it on a Windows PC.
Okay.
I guess any word on Steam Deck compatibility as well?
Yeah, we developed it playing on Steam Deck. I probably played many hours of this game on my Steam Deck.
Well, this is one of those games I can imagine somebody wanting to play on their Steam Deck, so it's good to ask.
Yeah. Has pricing been sorted out yet?
I believe so, but I don't know it offhand. I think it's very reasonable. That's what I know.
It's one of those, if you don't know it on hand, it's best not to put it in print. It helps you to not get yelled at by upper management.
I think it's like around $30.
Wouldn't surprise me if that was. I'm looking it up. It's going for 30 physical, and apparently like $24.99 digital. I want to say.
That's good. At least
well,
it's not
either
doing,
way. It's a great value.
Yeah. So, that's fairly reasonable for what's on display here.
I guess while you're looking, Adam, is there anything else included with the physical version, or?
Yes, I was going to get to that because I got a bit of PR from Atari about this like 2 days ago. There's going to be a prequel comic coming with the physical edition of Yars Rising. So I wanted to ask about that. Because the PR framed it as a return to the grand tradition of having comics with Yars Revenge.
The good old days.
Right. So the 1982 release of Yars Revenge, one of the things that was really unique about it was the first game that had like this deep lore and story, or at least one of the first, we'll say. And the way they expressed that was not in the game itself. It came had a comic book that came with it. Now, I think our comic will come. It'll come a bit later after release of the game. But there is a one issue. It's a special comic that is sort of like a prequel to the Yars Rising story. And another thing that we do comic-wise in-game, in Yars Rising, all of our cutscenes are represented, or at least all of our major cutscene moments are represented by this in-game motion comic cinema cutscene. You've maybe seen something similar to it in our River City Girls games, for instance. I think this is sort of like a even more advanced version of what we did there, where it's, you have voice acting. This one you have color comics, and there's a little bit more animation to them and effects, and it's essentially a nod to the fact that it's part of the brand lineage to have comics to tell story in the Yars world. And so we wanted to make sure that our game stayed true to that, and that's why we do that storytelling method.
So who's penning this prequel comic?
It's actually written by the same person who wrote the game dialogue, the Wayforward director, Adam Tierney, who I believe you've spoken to before.
Damn.
Yeah. We had him not too long ago on the program.
He's an incredible writer, just a funny, brilliant dude, and a good friend of mine. I've been honored to work with him for many years on so many projects together, and Yars Rising is no different. When I heard that we were going to do a comic, I was just so excited to have him write it.
Indeed. I can hear the excitement in your voice.
I'm stoked. I love this stuff, man. I can't wait for people to play this game, and the fact like to have created like this universe of characters, and now there's gonna be a comic about them. That's such a rare treat that doesn't happen. And so it's like I get to make video games for a living. That's super cool. But when someone like gets to like make a comic about the game that I made, like that's wow. That's like what an honor. It's such a cool thing.
Well, it's good that Atari has afforded you this opportunity to stretch your, let's say, creative muscles in so many different directions, unexpected directions.
Yeah, that's true. Atari's been absolutely phenomenal to work with. I couldn't ask for a better partner. The really wonderful thing with Atari is they came to us and they said, I still remember, they said, we want you to make a Wayforward game. At the end of the day, they really respected our vision and supported the game that we wanted to make. They really just saw us as creatives, and they wanted to embrace the world that we wanted to offer to them and to the players. And I think when you have that kind of freedom, the result's going to be good because you're not making any compromises. You're not like they're not telling us what to do or how to make it. They were there to give us their wisdom and guidance along the way, for which I was very thankful. But it was never really like I never really felt like there was any kind of like mandate. They were just so supportive as partners, and so yeah, I just had to say that about Atari.
Indeed. I suppose, as a bit of an aside, speaking of Atari and Wayforward and history, has there been any talk about reviving Centipede Infestation?
Oh, it's a deep cut, isn't it? Wow, I wasn't expecting to hear about Centipede
I wasn't
Infestation
expecting
today.
that one either.
I'm like,
gosh, I don't think I have an answer. Yeah, I mean that sure be interesting. Personally, this is my own feeling. I would love to work on something new or more Yars universe, but that sure would be interesting. I suppose it's another thing. If you want to see it, you'd have to let Atari know, huh?
Indeed. I'd personally like to see Centipede Infestation return. Criminally underrated game that unfortunately came out like at the tail end of the DS's lifespan. So, like, I think it came out like after the 3DS had released, if I'm remembering correctly. So,
it was on 3DS.
No, it's DS.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was in that like in between time where they're
Most
still
DS
releasing
games are also on the 3DS.
Yeah. At least can work.
Yeah, it's on the 3DS, but it was made as a DS title, just to be clarifying there. Like, anyway.
It's actually a 3DS game. Centipede Infestation is a Nintendo 3DS title. Yeah, it was also on Wii. There is a Wii version of Centipede Infestation. It was released for the Wii and the 3DS simultaneously. And published by Atari Interactive.
That might have been what you were thinking of, Adam. Where
Wikipedia agrees with that.
Yeah.
Okay. Like I said, it's during that fuzzy time when DS is still getting games and all that. Like, and it's also been a while since those games actually came out. Anyway. So putting that aside, when is Yars Rising coming out?
Yars Rising will be released on September 10th.
Oh man.
Okay, that's only about a month from now.
Yeah, this just a little over. By the time this episode actually gets cut and sent to the archives, it'll be a month.
Hmm. Like, so not too long to wait. Though I suppose if you're really anticipating the title, it's going to seem like a forever crawl. I've been there. We've all been there.
Yeah.
But I'm sure it'll be well worth the wait.
And I trust pre-orders are available in all available platforms by now.
I believe so.
All right. So go wishlist it or pre-order it if you want.
Yep. So I suppose my final question at this stage is, have you given any thought to what you will be working on post Yars?
Yeah, but can't talk about it. But I'll tell you this: I feel like there's never been a more exciting time for Wayforward. The things that we've got ahead, things we currently have in development, things we're discussing about potentially making. It's like a dream come true every day.
Indeed. It's good that your dreams are coming true then. And are manifesting themselves in what I'm sure is going to be another great title from Wayforward. I know I'm certainly looking forward to it, and I'm sure my colleagues here are looking forward to it as well. Anyway, so James, I want to thank you for coming on to the program and talking with us about both Reboot Camp and Yars Rising. It's been a very informative evening. On the topic of Wayforward, I will note that we will be welcoming Mariel Cartwright of Wayforward on September 25th to talk about Clock Tower Rewind with us. So look for that in the future. But in the meantime, the game is Yars Rising. It's going to be available for pretty much every major platform with a pulse.
And even some without one.
Yeah. I mean, the PlayStation 4, the Xbox One, they are looking kind of long in the tooth in the year of 2024. Like, I guess it's nice that they're still getting games, but I'm aware of how old they are as well. But anyway, so be sure to go pick it up on your platform of choice, either digitally or physically. And I think that'll about do it.
Well, thanks.
We definitely. Yeah. Hopefully we'll have you back on the program again. And hopefully it won't take like 4 or 5 years next time. Anyway, that'll about do it for this installment of Fragments of Silicon. We'll do the topic of discussion next week. It's nothing that was pressing anyway. So with that in mind, coming up on the week ahead, we do have a new episode of Moonhawk Studios Presents happening in let's say 30 minutes. I'm like, it all depends on the team assembling, the guests getting here and all that stuff. We are making a better attempt at starting that show reasonably on time. As I say, a hard cutoff of 11:15, 11:30, that kind of deal. Anyway, coming up on Friday, August 9th, we'll be having Michael Boyer of Team Run. We'll be talking about their upcoming title, Broken Lens. And on the Sunday reviews, we will have reviews of Truxton, Sneaky Rat, Dross, and Parasite Chlorophyll Worms. So until next time, I shall wish you good gaming.